Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're in Masechtas Ksuvos Daf Lamed Zayin. We're going to begin on the very bottom of Lamed Beis Amud Beis. So we concluded with a Mishnah that discussed, unlike the Mishnah on Chav Tes, the beginning of our parak, the Mishnah talked about cases where there is no Kanas. And among the different cases was a situation of a Shvuya, a woman who was in captivity above the 3 years. So he said there's no kanas because, according to the way Rashi read it, that at that point there's a cheskas hefker, and therefore there's a good assumption that she's not a basula. And the din of oines mafat is dafke if she's a basula. However, we established that Rabbi Yehuda disagrees and says a shvuya is considered to be kedushasa. She retains her sanctity, and therefore, because of that, there is kanas. And we said maybe that's only because we want to punish the the perpetrator, this man, and we apply the concept of shloyeh chayt nisker, that we don't want him to benefit for when he did something wrong. We want him to be punished. So on this, the Gemara continues and says that even when it comes to a person who testifies, according to one opinion, in the event that he also pays for her ransom, so a person is not going to just waste his money and throw his money out, and therefore probably when he testifies that in fact she is pure, that she is tahara, so then we're going to believe him, and she's allowed to marry him if he's a kohen. So on this Gemara says, Ramile Rab Papa Bar Shmuel Rab Yosef. So he asked the following contradiction as we go to Lamed Zayin with Aleph. V'savar Rabbi Yehuda, is it true, like what our Mishnah says, that Rabbi Yehuda's of the opinion that b'kedushasa kaima, that we say that it is like she retains her kedusha, and therefore there's the din kanas, and also she'll receive Mosayim Zuz, as we saw, Bosanya, Hagiyaris Shnis Gaira. Let's say you have a woman who converts, Varasa Dam, and she sees Dam on that day, the day that she converted. So Yehuda Omer Dayashaita, which is the famous line, the beginning of Masechtas Nida. Exactly when do we say that she became a Nida? And if, let's say, she touched Taharos in the interim. So we say Dayashaita. Only from the moment that she actually saw the Dam, that is when she's considered to be Tameh, which is a cool. And Rashi says, V'lo gazru batumas me'es l'es, l'tameh taharos shenag behen. We don't apply me'es l'es, that everything within 24 hours from the time that she saw Dam, that we're just going to assume that also is going to apply, and therefore all the taharos that she touched is Tameh. No, that we're not going to do. Rather, we say Dayashaita. Rav Yossi Omer Harahi Kechol Hanashim. We say that she has the same din as any other woman, and therefore, because of that, Matam Esel Ace, Umibkida Pekida. And that language is actually depending on the situation. Me'esel Ace within 24 hours, or Pekida Pekida from the last time that she actually saw the Dam. So let's say she did a Pekida, an examination, let's say once a few hours ago, so then it's understood that obviously that's good. However, if let's say she only did a Pekida after 24 hours ago, then we apply Me'es L'Ace. So it's a little bit of a cool in a certain respect, but at least things retroactively are Tameh for a while. Utsrich lahamtim gimel chadashim, dear Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda also says that once she converts, she's not allowed to just get married right away. She has to wait for 3 months. Why? Says Rashi, lahavchin ben zera hanizra b'kedusha or zera hanizra shelo b'kedusha. We want to be able to make sure that when she's pregnant and has a child, that we want to know, did she have that child, did she conceive while she was Jewish or before she was Jewish? Rav Yossi mater li'ares l'nasim yad. According to Rav Yossi, he says no, it's okay. And Gemara is going to explain the reason why he's so lenient, that she can get engaged and even get married right away. She doesn't have to wait for those 3 months. So the problem is Rabbi Huda, why does he say B'Kedushasa Kaima, that she retains her Kedusha? If that's the case, then why would he require that you have to wait for 3 months? And Rashi says, Srichas lahamtin v'afal pisha katana enu misaberas. Even though it's true, she's not gonna potentially get pregnant. She's a little girl. Gzer katanu ata gedola. So Armalei Giyaris Ashvoya Karamas. So the question is based on her status as a Shvoya. And the Mishnah said, according to Yehuda, that Hari Hi B'Kedushasa. So why are you asking me a question about a Giyaris? So maybe they're not the same. Giyaris lo menatra nafsha. Shvoya menatra nafsha. When she's a Giyaris, before she converted, who says that she was particular and careful about these inyanim, and therefore we're strict and we make her wait for 3 months. Masha'en kin, when it comes to a shvuya, so this woman who's a yid, she's just tragically in captivity, so maybe she's more particular, she's more careful. Again, the question was that we clearly are afraid that this Giyaris had znus. This is why you need to wait for 3 months, but that's by a Giyaris, not by a shvuya. So he says, okay, fine. Rami shvuya shvuya. We have to actually ask the contradiction. It's got to be a stira on the same topic. Desanya. Hagiyaris vashvuya, which again, that's the key we're talking about. Vashivcha sheniftu v'nisgayru v'nishdachru. So if, let's say, again, focusing specifically on the woman who's in captivity, and she was freed, however, when she was freed, it was only Yisrael benos gimel shan b'yom echad. It was already beyond the 3 months. So Srichas Lahamtim Gimel Chadash in Rabbi Huda. We see that when it comes to Shvuya, you have to wait for 3 months. Well, obviously, because he is concerned that there is a potential that Znus took place. So then how come in our Mishnah he says that she's in Harahi B'Kedushasa? And concluding Rabbi Yosef Matul L'Nasim Yad. We didn't really elaborate on that, but at least again according to Rabbi Huda, it's a stira. So ishtik. So actually, it's such a good question that he was silenced. So Armalei Midish Shemielach Baha. Is there anyone that potentially knows the answer to this contradiction? So Armalei Hachi Am Rav Sheshis. So Rav Sheshis answers Shirauha Shenivla. It's in a situation where we actually saw that she had znos. In other words, normally, like our Mishnah, Rabbi Huda says that she remains in her Kedusha, and we say she did not have Znos. However, when it says she has to wait 3 months, is in a situation where you know for sure. So again, Rabbi Huda only requires to wait 3 months when we know for sure that she had Znos. Otherwise, in time of a suffix, no waiting is required. So if we're talking about a case where you actually saw her having Znos, so by the time to Rav Yossi, why would Rav Yossi be so lenient and say, it's okay, she can get married right away? What do you mean? We saw that she had znos. So there's a very, very good chance she's pregnant. So Marabak Sab Rav Yossi, Isha Mazana Mishameshes B'moich, Shalotis Aber. Even if it's true that she in fact had znos, but by the virtue of the fact that she had znos, she probably took extra precautions to make sure that she would not get pregnant, by having this type of a cloth to protect her from getting pregnant. So therefore, even though I know, Rabbi Yossi says, that she probably had we saw it, it doesn't matter. We are probably going to also assume that she was Meshemeshes B'moich. Now, Bishlam Giyaris, Kivan de Daitel Giyure, since her intention was to convert, Menatra Nafsha, she was protecting herself. Shvuya Nami, Do Yada Hecha B'matale. She has no idea at what point she's going to be freed. Shivcha Nami Deshama Do Yada Hecha B'matala. Shivcha Nami Deshama Mepi Mara. No, maybe we're talking about even a situation where she actually knows that she's going to be freed. She knows that this is going to be happening because she overheard the master talking about this. When it comes to a shivcha, that the master blinded her eye, so there's a din that she goes free right away. Now, how on earth would she have known that this potentially could have happened, that she would have protected herself to have a moich, so that she doesn't get pregnant? Maybe you're right. Maybe, in fact, when it comes to something like this, by Shein Ba'ayin, Rav Yossi says that the din is different, and that she would have to wait for 3 months. So Rav Yossi, Hari Anusa Mafuta, when it comes to Anusa Mafuta, obviously she wasn't anticipating this to happen to her. Vasanya, Anusa Mafuta, Srichas Lahaptin Gimel Chadash in Rabbi Yehuda. But again, focusing on Rabbi Yossi Mata Yoris someone else Miyad. Now it's unbelievable. He says that she can get married right away, even by Anusa Mafuta. But L'chaira, in that situation, she wasn't anticipating this was going to happen. Nonetheless, he says you can get married right away. Same thing when it comes to Shen V'ayin. She doesn't know that this master is going to end up harming her and knocking out her eye or her tooth. Nonetheless, he says she can get married right away. But why would we say that? Because she's not really going to be protecting herself, because she thought maybe she was going to be in this state for the rest of her life. Omar Rav Yossi ish mizana misapeches kadesh lo tisaber. Actually, even if she doesn't have a moich, she's going to turn herself around so that the zera, which went inside of her body, is not going to absorb to the point that she'll be able to have a child. At least that's how it was back then. And therefore, for that reason, she will do that in all situations. Even when it comes to Mamela situation, Shen Ba'ayin, Anis Mafata, she's always going to be Masapeches. She's not going to want to get pregnant. It's possible that she doesn't do it such a great job, and therefore it is shaykh that she still may get pregnant. Even though maybe that is true what she's going to want to do, but that's not always an effective method of birth control. And therefore, for that reason, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to wait 3 months. But again, that's only because we actually saw that she was Mazana. However, in the event that we would actually really not have an idea, so then, as our Mishnah says, we're going to apply this concept of saying that she is the Kedusha, and therefore she, in fact, will receive Kanas and everything. Question TB 23. So the question is, Nusa Mafuta, so it's obvious it's a machlokus. Rav Yossi Mater Miyad, Kivon Shenisafeches Kadesh Lo Tisaber, Rav Yehuda Oyser Cheshin Shemel Nosafla Yafe. That was TB 23. As we just saw this, okay? So that is the logic between Rav Yehuda and Rav Yossi, that even when it comes to cases of Mamela, she's going to be Mazana Misapeches, Kedush Nisaber. Yehuda says that may not always work. Shemol Nishavcha Yafe. Okay, let's continue with the next piece of Gemara. So the Gemara says, Shenem Rav Lo Yeh Asayin Anashi Anish V'chulu. So the pasuk says that, let's go back to our Mishnah, that says, if let's say you're mizana with a daughter, in which it's a misa b'di'adam, a death penalty, so then there's no din kanas, because when it comes to hitting a woman who's pregnant, if you caused the mother's still alive, but you caused a miscarriage, you have to pay demei vlados, you have to pay money. However, if you kill the woman, the diak is that you would not have to pay, and therefore that's the reason why in all these situations where there's a misa b'di'adam, there's no chiyuv moment. So we're going to see this pasuk that we've quoted before. I thought we learned it out from another pasuk. That we learn out from there. That when it comes to two punishments, we don't give two punishments for the same crime. So we're going to end up only giving the stronger punishment of misa b'di'adam, and it'll be parted from paying. The question is, why don't we just use that pasuk? One is referring to when you have misa and mamoin, that the din is that you only get killed and you don't pay. The other one is talking about money. You don't pay, but instead you get malchus. So why do you need both? Why can't you just derive one from the other? Here we're talking about this person's going to lose his life. So of course we're not going to ask him to also pay some money. Over here he's still alive. So even though Malchus is very painful and very, very difficult to withstand, but you're still going to end up living through it. They're going to evaluate you to make sure that they're not going to give you more than you can potentially bear, because otherwise you're going to end up getting killed, and we don't want to do that to you. Malchus is not a death penalty. So maybe in that situation you do have to pay. V'yashmi'in Malchus u'momen, very interesting svara, mishlam doli chomer isura. The Isser is not so strict, says Rashi. Lo over avera chamura, you didn't violate a big avera, so to speak. Therefore, we should only give you one punishment, because obviously it's not so bad. It's bad, but it's not so bad that it's a death penalty. So therefore, maybe since it's obviously not such a strong punishment, so we say, okay, fine, we're not going to be strict. Maybe because obviously this guy is so horrible that he must have committed such a terrible crime that he's getting a death penalty. So we're going to maybe throw the book at him and say you have to pay as well. That's why you need both psukim. According to Rameir, he does make a distinction. He says there's no din of miso mishalim. However, he holds loikim mishalim. So therefore, he only needs one pasuk. So tarti lamali. So interesting. Chada miso mamoin, in which again he says you don't pay. Instead, the person just gets the death penalty. As we continue to lam and sign mebeis, the chada b'misa umalkus, and the other one is talking about misa and malkus. You're right. When it comes to malkus and mamoin, he says you get both. However, misa and mamoin, only misa. Misa and malkus, only malkus. Because they're two totally separate things. One's on the body and one is on his pocketbook, his wallet. So maybe because they're two separate things, they're not going to do that. They only do one. Both of them are afflicting the body. So maybe you should first give a malchus, which is like partially killing him, if you will, and then you kill him completely. So it's almost like they're connected. They're not really separate. So therefore, the chiddush is that even in that situation, we only do misa and not malchus. V'yashmin and miso malchus did tarti begufe lo avdinan. Maybe it's the opposite svara. We're not going to have you get two of the same punishments because both of them are happening to your body. So maybe, actually, if they're two totally separate things, that may be reason to think that you should give them both. That he should be killed and pay. Fine. Now the pasuk says, you're not to take money for someone who kills. So Lumli says Rashi, Mashmanami im targenu lo tenshinu mamoin. It seems like the same concept that if you are going to have someone sentenced to death, we don't take koifer. We're not going to take money from him. It seems like the same idea. So in this, the Gemara says, Diyam Rachmana, the Torah is actually saying, don't say, oh, you know what? We'll accept this interesting bribe, this halachic bribe. Instead of you being killed, you can give us money, and then you're not going to be killed. That's what the pasuk is telling you. It's saying you cannot choose paying instead of being killed. No, you're not able to get away with the death penalty. That will not happen. Why does it mention this notion when it comes to the Ir Miklat, if you kill B'Shaygay? You maybe think that the guy says, let me donate some money over here, and then all of a sudden I'm not going to have to go to the Ir Miklat. That's what it's come to tell you. So why do we need these two psukim that you can't get out of Galus or the death penalty by paying your way out? So chad b'shoig v'chad b'mezid tzricha. Diashmin b'mezid, which you're actually killed b'mezid, you're going to be killed mishum the chomer isure. Obviously, the punishment was so harsh that you are actually going to be killed. So because the crime was so bad, so maybe the din is you cannot pay to get out of it. However, when it comes to killing b'shoigeg, instead of you sitting in a city of refuge, maybe we'll take some money from you. No. Maybe the reason why is we don't the lake ibn neshama. We don't kill the rotseach. Avol mezid ibn neshama emalo tzricha. So look in Rashi. Avol mezid mishum ibn neshama emer nishkol mamoina mekayim nefesh b'Yisrael. Maybe we should take money, because why would we want a Jew to die? So therefore, maybe we will accept money. In other words, instead of him being killed. That's why we have these two psukim to tell us no, that you cannot get out of city of refuge or misa by paying. And then the pasuk there also says, "V'aretz lo yechupar ladam," that the land will not be cleansed of the blood. Asher shupach ba, that was spilled. Ki'im b'dam shoymchay, but rather the blood which was spilled. Says Rashi, "V'lo b'pidyon mamoin lumli mulo tikul kaifer nafka." Again, lumli l'chayra, this is telling the same thing, that you can't just pay money and get out of something. So menboyel g'lasanya. Actually, this pasuk is coming to tell us something different. Menayin shim nis arpa egla. Let's say you actually killed the egla rufa, which was brought when we're unsure of a murder. We don't know who did it, so we will measure to the closest city, and they have to bring an egla rufa. So let's say the egla died, nimsa hahoyrig, and then all of a sudden it turns out that we found out who the murderer was. So how do we know that we can't say, "Oh, don't worry about it, Hashem forgave everyone because we killed this egla, this calf"? No, he's not potter. So it's come to tell you that even after the animal was killed and the ceremony took place, the reality is if we find the murderer, we're still going to sentence that person to death. You should pursue and look after the blood, the innocent blood in your midst. Lumali. What does that pasuk come to tell you? How do we know that when it comes to the death penalty, that when it comes to one of the Arba Misos based in, which is B'sayif with a sword, they are supposed to kill him on the neck? So we compare all death penalties by the sword to the Egla Rufa. Malhol, just like this animal in a ceremony, minat sabor, we kill the Egla by its neck. We do the exact same thing when it comes to a murder. When it comes to Egla Rufa, we use a hatchet from the back of the neck. So maybe we should do the same thing when it comes to a murder. Why do we do sayif by the by the kan of the veshet? Maybe we should do it by the back of the neck with a hatchet. So Amar Rav Nachman, this is an unbelievable answer. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Boravua, Amar Kra, V'yahavta recha kamoicha. You should love your neighbor as yourself. Bar lo misa yafa. You have to find a good misa for him. So it's telling you, first of all, it's unbelievable. You have to love your neighbor. This is a murderer, right? You still have to show an element of compassion, so that when you kill him, even though it's true, you're supposed to learn from the Egla Rufa. Therefore, it should be, technically, he should be killed in the exact same way. But since we have to show sensitivity, even for this murderer, therefore we have to do it in the fastest, quickest way. Fine. Now, kol cherem asher yachorim en adam lo yipada lamli. So again, this pasuk, which is mashma a lashon of chayvi misus, just like when it says zaveach elokim yacharam, What do you need this pasuk for? Look at the Sanya. Menayin l'yoytzel harig. Let's say, and this is question 8. Question 8. Ma bein lamdo b'pasuk kol cherem asher min adam lo yipada. So, menayin, how do we know? Well, yoytzel harig. So you have this guy who's going out to be killed. Ve'omer echad erko olai. Person says that his value is upon me. Now, the truth is, this person's going to be killed. So you would maybe think that this person's value is really nothing. So menayin shelo kulam. So how do we know that in fact that's the case? That what you said is nothing, because even though he's alive now, but he's a dead man. Shnemer kol cherem asher yachar min adam lo yipada. You cannot redeem him, which means again, if a person tries to do the erchen of this person, it means nothing. Maybe if you would say this statement about this person before the verdict, the same din would apply. It's min ha'adam. So therefore it's a miut, and saying that it's not all situations. Therefore, this guy, before Gemar Din, if you would say arachalai, you would actually have an obligation to pay a financial responsibility to the Beis Hamikdash. Or Rav Chananya ben Akavya, Yamin Narach Mipnei Shidam of Kutsuvim, person who says when it comes to Erechin, it's totally because the money is set. The Torah specifies exactly how much every person has to pay. So Ma'yavidle. So according to him, how do we understand that? How do we understand this pasuk? So in this, Miboyle G'Asani, Rabbi Shmuel ben Oshel, Rabbi Yochanan ben Baruch Omer, Lafi Shematzinu, we find Lumumasim b'nei Shemayim, a person who is being killed by the heavens, Shenoisen Mamoin, they can pay money, Umaschaper lehen, and he can actually achieve kapara. So let's say Lumashal, a person, says Rashi, can go in Haisa Chabur b'aviv. You hit your father and you caused a bruise, or you kidnapped. Shein kapara ksuva b'shkagasai. The kapara is not written over there. So the din is shenemer im kaifer yushas alav, that in the event that a person would pay for misa b'nei shemayim, and then perhaps the misa b'nei shemayim will be erased. Yachal apidi adam kain. You would think maybe also comes to b'di adam. Again, you could receive kapara, and you can ask for forgiveness, and Hashem will forgive you, and therefore, because of that, we're not going to sentence you to death. Doesn't make any difference, and therefore, those are the two answers. The pasuk is either telling you that if after Gemar Din, about to die, you said Arach Alai, Eino Nerach, it's nothing, or Shein Mischaper B'chavi Misas Beistin, B'Koifer Kamo B'Misa B'nei Shemayim. When it comes to Misa B'nei Shemayim, it does work. It's also by, as some people explain, there's no issue when it comes to Mamoin and Karis, because it's Karis you can do tshuva. So it's the same idea, maybe according to this opinion, in Misa B'nei Shemayim you can do tshuva, and therefore it'll be erased if you achieve kapara. However, not when it comes to Misa B'nei Adam, which is what the pasuk is telling you. Ve'enli ela misos chamurais. I only know very strict death penalties. Shel nitna shkagas lekapara. That shaykh, it's not written anywhere that was done b'shaykh, there's a kapara. Misas kalash nitna shkagas lekapara menayin. Talmud loimer kol cherem. It's telling you from kol cherem, the din is that even when it comes to misas kalois, a person by Misa B'nei Shemayim, he will be able to achieve kapara, and then he will not receive Misa B'nei Shemayim. We're going to stop here. Let's see if we have a question here. TA 21, Hayotzel Harig. So this we had. A person goes out to be killed. V'nigmar dinai, and Gemar din, v'armer echad, arach alai, o damim alai, ma dinai. So if a person says erach alai, as we just established, TA 21, so he says The erech olai, it's actually a machlokis. Tanakam Reb Chanan ben Akavia. We said according to Reb Chanan ben Akavia, it does work. The dam of olai kol yama ein lo damin. If you say dam olai, his value, so that everyone holds it doesn't work. However, if a person says erechin, that's a machlokas. Adkan.